Welcome back. Now joining me at the desk after her sit down with Eskom Chair Kgosientsho. Let's get down to business. Officially appointed as Minister in the Presidency responsible for electricity earlier this month, he's charged with one main task: ending load shedding. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, South Africa's Minister of Electricity, joins us now. Minister, good afternoon. Welcome.
Afternoon, and thank you very much for the invitation, and afternoon to the viewers.
All right, Minister, you've been in the presidency for a while. You've been heading up investment and infrastructure. So let's talk about this role and how it really prepares you for this Minister of Electricity role.
Well, I think in the role I had to engage a lot with the private sector, especially from the point of view of trying to access financing and funding for big catalytic projects in the country. And then the second one has to do with the need for us to galvanize, if you like, technical skills to help us to do project preparation, design, and also delivery of mega projects in the country. So in that period, I had an opportunity to really understand the financing and funding ecosystem in the country, and appreciation of the fact that the state has hemorrhaged a lot of technical and financial engineering skills over a period of time. But the financial fraternity, the multilateral development banks, commercial banks, and the DFIs were all committed to helping government to ensure that we are able to present a credible and robust project pipeline, so that we are able to improve the share of the gross fixed capital formation to the GDP. As you will know, we're sitting at about 13.9%, and the NDP target for the total investments in the South African economy is about 30% to help us to achieve the aspirational targets. But also an appreciation that the state will lead, but the state must crowd in private sector participation, so that the exercise of, at least in my immediate past life, of delivering infrastructure, it has to be a co-creation. So essentially the state leading, but private sector being on board, and of course there will be community organization, there will be labor. And that has helped me to have, if you like, soft landing, or a smooth transition into this place, the current position, because when I engage with the private sector, it's essentially the same people. It's just that we are resolving a much more, what appears to be an intractable problem, but a problem that, if not resolved, will undermine the economic prospects of our country.
All right, Minister, while we are on the topic of your past experience, and there have been lots of debates on whether you are the right man for the job. So we obviously have to even take it back to before you were head of investment and infrastructure, to when you were mayor of Tshwane. And there have been quite a lot of concerns that have been brought to the fore. For example, the fact that there was irregular expenditure during your tenure. And of course, we know the corruption problem at Eskom, when it comes to Eskom being one of the targets of state capture. Of course, also corruption allegations brought to the fore by former Eskom CEO Andre de Ruyter. But also other concerns that you failed to unite the ANC in Tshwane. And of course, we know the importance of unification in this job, where you have to ensure that there are synergies between the different stakeholders. So what do you have to say on those concerns?
No, I mean, those are valid concerns. Let me just surface the facts. I mean, I was the chair of the ANC for 3 uninterrupted terms, and I never had any contestations at the time. And when I left the party in the region, we had the highest membership of any period during the history of a democratic South Africa. And then just on how the city has been run, I mean, it's a lie that has been peddled the most, and if it's not confronted, it appears to be the truth. So these are the facts. So you don't have to believe me. Just go and read the report done by the Gauteng City Region Observatory, which is based at the University of the Witwatersrand. They've done an analysis of service delivery in the province, and they looked at the multiple indicators. And then we're the best performing municipality in terms of, it's an independent review. Look at the report of the AG from a perspective of the quality of spending, how we spend our capital budget, and then go to the AG at the time that we exited as the ANC administration, look at the money that was in the coffers. The one area where there was a significant misstep, and it's a coincidence because that idea was ahead of its time. So essentially we had gone out to the market or got to be approached by innovators in the space to say, look, we think that we can help you to resolve the issues of your collection levels because even at the time we're sitting at 93% current and historical was like 8%. So we are about 101% total collections. They were saying that it's important that you collect the money before people get to consume the services, utilities in particular, water and electricity. That's the first one. The second one, which is important, was to say that you'll be able to remotely switch people off. One, if they are not up to date, but secondly, you'll be able to manage their consumption. So essentially, you'll be able to remotely disconnect their geysers, in particular, to help us to lower consumption at the time. Because this was an unsolicited bid, we went ahead, went to council approved, and then we're taken on review. The Constitutional Court, ultimately, the Apex Court says, no, you should have given other players an opportunity to participate in that. And that contract was then stopped. So there is nothing untoward. But remember, where is the city at now? Besides the well-documented service delivery issues, the state of the financial affairs of the city, it's high levels of under-collection. If you had introduced the instrument at the time, you will not be sitting with this situation. Now, ESCOM says that you need to load shed. If we had that solution, you don't have to load shed various suburbs. All you do, you disconnect all the geysers in the city and you provide ESCOM the share of your contribution to reducing energy consumption in the city. So yes, that's what's the issue. But you don't have to believe me. This is the point I always make. Go to the AG and independent body. Go to the records of the Gauteng City Region Observatory. And then the last arbiter is the people of Tshwane. Go to any township, I challenge you, and ask them life before and after. They'll tell you we want the man back.
All right, Minister, let's bring it back to now the mandate here. The President has given you a task, Minister of Electricity. Let's talk about what the mandate is here. Is it to do away with load shedding altogether? Is it to reduce it? And then let's also talk about the tools that you have in your goodie bag,
Sure.
of how we're going to deliver on this mandate.
Yes, the wording is important, and I'm happy that you are asking the question. It says reduce the intensity, so essentially bring it down from the highest levels that has been on record, at least public, is stage 6 load shedding. So reduce the levels of load shedding. And then that's the intensity. And then reduce the regularity so that there could be off days, if you like. But if you look at the last calendar year, I think we had 202 days of load shedding. We have not had a single day, or I think there was one Sunday, where we had no load shedding in the country. So you can see that the regularity is something that still requires attention. And hopefully the constellation of your efforts over a period of time should lead to the ending of load shedding. But what is immediate is both the intensity and the regularity. And I guess that the next question is, when will that be? When are we going to end load shedding? And I had said that when we have been engaging with the stakeholders, the various reports that are there, Minister Godan, Minister Mantashe, Minister Godongwana in their official capacities, they've been doing one work or the other related to ESCOM. ESCOM has been doing some work. So, I mean, in the past 5 or 4 days, I've been familiarizing myself with what these documents are saying so that we don't reinvent the wheel. Secondly, is to engage with the partners in the ecosystem of delivering energy. So on the consumption side, it'll be your energy-intensive users, your mines in particular. So we have engaged with them, so we know what the pipeline of projects are, renewable embedded generation. We know what they require to be able to evacuate the electrons, essentially strengthen the grid. And then there's issues around how are you going to finance some of these interventions. And I'm not talking about the fiscal support. I'm talking about private sector instrument to support the, if you like, new generation capacity. We have had those conversations with business. Business has also come to the party, organized business in the form of BUSA. They've made available as a start the seed capital of about 100 million rand, what we call the Resource Mobilization Fund, to help to provide expertise that I will need to be able to discharge the work that I'm doing. And now we have a date with the power stations. So the whole of next week we're at the power stations. There are 6 notorious power stations, notorious because of the following. Their energy availability factor is the lowest. Kusile, I think, is sitting at 25%. And then you have Midupi. These 2 are the most recent of the fleet. And then you have other 4 which are also bringing down, if you like, the total energy availability factor. So the best chance we have to resolving load shedding in the quickest possible space of time is to improve that energy availability factor. The reports have told me what the issues could be. Now I'm going to engage with the workers. Remember that the people who are going to resolve this problem, the problem won't be resolved by the appointment of the Minister of Electricity. The problem will be resolved by the actions led by the Minister of Electricity to address what appears to be intractable challenges at Eskom. Because Eskom is indispensable to the resolution of this problem, because it's sitting with significant amount of base load. No one sits with the base load, but it's Eskom that is sitting with base load. 52 gigawatts that has been installed, but at any given time they can guarantee about 27,000 megawatts. So you can see what the disparities are. Now as I speak to you, the energy availability factor is at 53. 2010 we're 85% plus, 18-19 we're at about 78%, and you can see the deterioration has been very rapid. So you can see that at the current trend, we are really facing trouble, ahead of us. And that's why we need to make those interventions. But you don't get to learn about these things from just reading the reports before you. So I'll be at the coalface, literally and figuratively, at the coalface, engaging with the workers, understanding what the issues are, and then come back to the general public using your platform. And thanks once more for the invitation to say these are the timelines, this is how we're going to execute our mandate.
Minister, I want an absolute number here, because of course your job is temporary. It will only last as long as we do have the load shedding issue. Eskom has a 2-year plan. I was sitting with a Chair Makwana recently, and he was talking about the energy availability factor that by the end of March this year, you say now it stands at 53, that they're aiming for 60%, and then March 2024 they're aiming for 65, and then 2025 March they're aiming for 70%. I even think in the Energy Action Plan the aim was for 75%. So when are you comfortable then to leave the position, when we completely end load shedding and go to the benchmark of, I think, 86% globally, or the 70% that Eskom has targeted for 2025, or 75% from the Energy Action Plan? So an absolute amount. When do you plan to leave your role?
Oh, well, it will be very irresponsible for me just in the studio make that determination. Like I said, just give me time, go to the power stations. We have engaged with Eskom. Remember, the equation works this way. So the board will have that target, get the energy availability factor to whatever the number in 2 years. But there's additional sources of generation capacity, and that's renewable. We're going also, part of the base load will be gas. So we need to bring those on stream, if you like, because the lower the energy availability factor, the greater the need for us to speed up additional generation. So that's on the generation side. Then you can make interventions on the demand side. I was sharing with colleagues the studies that suggest that, and this is the modeling that has been done, robust modeling. If you and I and everyone across the country, those of us who have got geysers, if we were to switch off our geysers, we can say 4,000 megawatts. We remove 4 stages of load shedding. I don't know at what stage we are on today, but if we are anything stage 4 or below, we shouldn't be having any load shedding. So the point that must be communicated is that it's not about interventions on the generation side. There's a lot that you and I can do on the demand side. Eskom ran a very, very successful campaign 2010 during the World Cup, and they were telling me that on record, at the height of that, at the peak of that, they were able to save 3,000 megawatts. That's 3 stages of load shedding. So that's something that we need. And then there are issues of embedding value-added generation of the energy-intensive users. So even if their improvement of the EAF energy availability factor is gradual and they anticipate they'll reach their target in 2 years, it doesn't necessarily follow that load shedding will end for that period, because you can have additional generation capacity and also address the demand side, because the point is to reduce that deficit of about 6,000 megawatts that brings us into the load shedding situation. Yeah.
Now, Minister, another important aspect to consider here is the politics of this role. You will have to, assist us in managing very strong ministers. You know, there's a Minister of Finance, Kgosientsho, he knows his story. The same with the Minister of Mineral Resources, as well as Minister of Public Enterprises. A big role is you having these, parties together at the same table to move forward in this regard. Let's talk about the politics of it, and also possibly your relationship with these ministers and really being able to lobby them for, a solution that will work for all of us.
Well, to start with, I'm not a political amateur. Now I serve in the apex political structure of the ANC. So my role is not ornamental. And then the second one is that I have exceptionally good working relationships with the ministers. Part of the internal conversation was to sit with them. I've done one-on-ones with all of them extensively. So there's an understanding and appreciation of where we are. And the president did say that at the right time he'll make the announcement in relation to what are the additional powers that is going to transfer into the ministry. But even if the president has not come back to say what that is, I think we've been able to carve out what our responsibility is. Minister of Finance is about the fiscal support, fiscal instrument, placing conditions around how Eskom should be able to exercise that support. So essentially it's about maintaining the existing fleet and strengthening the grid. Minerals and energy really is at a policy level, and also releasing the various bid windows of renewable energy in terms of the integrated resource plan. Because whenever it goes out to the market, it is informed by the integrated resource plan. And then, of course, Minister Godan, the shareholder representative, of course, we have had those conversations with him. I'm at the coal phase where the action is happening at the plant level. Of course, at corporate governance, and that Minister Godan holds the, if you like, the interest of the sovereign. But with me, it's about engaging with the plant manager, the unit managers, asking those questions: how can the state help to accelerate the improvement of the energy availability factor? So if you like, I'm the one who getting my hands dirty, and then of course working with the Eskom board, the executive authority, and the accounting officer. Of course, we hope that the permanent appointment will be made soon. We are able to accelerate, if you like, the commitment we have made to the public in improving the energy availability factor.
Minister, do you think that Eskom at this point is being pulled in different directions in terms of securing energy, and from where? That maybe there's tension between the use of coal and the use of renewable energy sources? No,
that's a great question. So I always say our point of reference is not the public pronouncement, but essentially the integrated resource plan. So the ARP says what? Coal will still be 44% of the mix. There's gas and diesel about 15%, and then nuclear 2.5%. So you can see from those numbers that already close to about 60% of your generation is going to come from base load. And then the same IRP says that PV 10%, and I think battery storage and battery storage is going to be about 15% or so. So the IRP makes a reference to all these technologies, if you like. So of course, when one minister takes to the stage, might be emphasizing coal, the other one might be emphasizing renewable. I'm in favor of what the IRP says. So it's a combination of both. I just illustrated to you that as we wait for Eskom to ramp up the energy availability factor, which is essentially coal fleet, 88% of that is coal, then we need to find additional generation. That that additional generation is renewable, of course, a combination of PV and wind, so that you are able to balance the ratio. You don't upset the grid. PV available when the sun is up during the day, essentially. At night is not there, but the coast provide you sufficient wind, and you are able to provide to balance the frequencies, because you must remain within that frequency. When solar is off, then wind can take over, and then that is supported by battery storage, and in that way that comes approximate what you call base load. So it's about all of these things done together. And when I enter this space, like I said, going to the coal phase, because the ESCOM fleet contributes a lot, and then we'll be meeting with the renewable energy providers to say that some of your projects have been approved, but yet you are not evacuating the electrons. Essentially, they are not producing electricity. What is the problem? I know with others, their assets are stranded. The electrons are stranded. They are in the Northern Cape. There's no sufficient grid to evacuate the electrons or energy up north where consumption is happening, because the concentration of generation has been in Mpumalanga for obvious reason, and that's why the grid is stronger there, coming south into the center and then spreading to all parts of the country. So yes, we're going to have those conversations with everyone. The point I'm making is that the mix includes all of these technologies.
Well, Mr. Thank you so much for your time today. We are out of time, and thank you for your insights. That was South Africa's Minister of Electricity, Kgosientsho Ramokgopa.